Michael, you have a new article up on the website. You put it out yesterday. And it's called, Are the Washington Commanders Ready for Battle? And I got to tell you, before we get into the nitty gritty of this article, I love how you always are able to tie things together that you wouldn't expect, and that you're on a road trip for hours and hours and hours and on your way back from Vegas to the East Coast, and you somehow tie together Winston Churchill and the Washington Commanders. Take us through it.
Well, I'm driving on Route 70 past Elliott's famous landmark there at Columbia, Missouri, where he went to school. And there's a little town called Fulton that's off the side of the road, off one of the exits. And that's where Churchill gave the Iron Curtain speech. And Westminster College, which makes no sense. Why would he come to this middle? I mean, literally, you either fly to St. Louis or fly to Kansas City. It's not an easy place to get to. Apparently, he flew to Washington and then took the train with Harry Truman there. So it reminded me of the quote. And what it really tries to center on is the fact that there's a lot of pain and suffering that is going on in Washington, and the despair that you go through, perhaps you can come out the other end. And when I think of Washington, I think of a team that is really not that far away. I mean, understanding they have the two biggest concerns. One of the things I've always looked at, I've learned a lot working here at the network, is I've learned that the over totals, the win totals are always a little bit different, because it really comes down to two things: who's your quarterback and who's your head coach. And when I see Washington at a 6.5 win total, when I know they had a really good defense last year and they have really good skill players, I hearken back to that. And I think that's the point of my column, that for all the turmoil that's going on in Washington, removing Snyder is going to be a blessing. But are they good enough at quarterback? Are they good enough at quarterback, at head coach?
Yep, exactly. You're right. The relief the organization will receive when former owner Daniel Snyder is gone should give this team better results. The facts are simple. The team's more talented than that 6.5 win total that's been posted. And when you talk about those concerns with head coach and quarterback, Sam Howell, unproven, and Ron Rivera has yet to show that he can be a winning head coach in this league. It's been since 2017 that he's had a winning season. He, of course, takes the Panthers to the Super Bowl in 2015. They have a losing season the next year, a winning season, and then haven't been able to put anything solid together since then.
No, and I mean, right, so the quote really goes, the quote says, I pass with relief from the tossing sea of cause and theory to the firm ground of results and fact. And I think ultimately that sums up Ron Rivera, right? He's got to have results and facts now. He can't just the theory that Dan Snyder's hindered them, right? And so last year I'm watching them and I'm saying, how could they play with that offensive line? They don't look good, and they went with it anyway. This year I'm saying, look, I think why didn't they trade for Swift? I mean, there's no running back on their team that averaged over 4 yards a carry. Now, you can blame it on the offensive line, but they don't have a legitimate big-time back. The Eagles just got a legitimate difference maker, a nickelback, somebody who would be their J.D. McKissick. Because remember, Stormy, when J.D. McKissick was playing for them, they were good. He got hurt. Now he couldn't pass their physical. But, Seattle signed him and they had to bring him back. They matched it. It was one of those flipped them. So I think they really needed that. Why didn't they make that move? Why wouldn't they go after that? And are they good enough in the offensive line? To me, there's a lot of questions. And then where are they on offense? I mean, this is really the first time Eric Bieniemy is going to have a chance to call his own plays and run his own offense, and we're going to find out how that works.
How significant do you think that is for this offense, having a new voice in there, and Eric Bieniemy, somebody who we know the success that the Chiefs have had offensively, but has it really been Eric or not? You say he has the opportunity to prove himself. What kind of a benefit could that be for an offense if he really is successful?
I mean, if he's everything we think he is, then he should take this quarterback. I mean, remember when Norv Turner was an assistant coach at the Rams, and he took over for Mike Shula in Dallas for Jimmy Johnson's third season. Nobody knew who Norv Turner was, but that offense with Troy Aikman all of a sudden became really good. I mean, everybody could say, well, he had Troy Aikman. Well, the year before they had Troy Aikman, they couldn't move the ball. They had Jerry Rome and they had Mike Shula, and they couldn't move the ball. David Shula, excuse me. They couldn't move the ball. So once that change happened, it manifested itself in the performance. We're going to find out. Now, I think it's hard for him because he's got Sam Howell, a rookie quarterback. Guy started one game. But I question this. I mean, they watched Carson Wentz play early in the year. They watched him in training camp, and then they put him back in during the season. Like, are we watching the same game? Would you have ever put Carson Wentz back in a game after you watched him? Especially after you watched if you watch the Washington-Tennessee tape, you have to ask yourself, how did they lose to Tennessee? And it was Wentz, his stupidity, his making mistakes, throwing the ball away, doing crazy things. Like, I would never put him back on the field.
I know this reference is going to go over your head, Michael, but there's a quote in the movie Mean Girls where this girl is trying to say fetch as like a trendy little slang, and the thing is like, stop trying to make fetch happen. Stop trying to make Carson Wentz happen. We all know that he's out and over.
Point.
It's done.
Great point.
Like, let's move on from Carson Wentz as a starting quarterback in this league. He's not. So now you have the young guy in Sam Howell and trying to make things around him work. You need him and Bieniemy to click, and you talked about not going out and getting DeAndre Swift. Is there somebody out there that they could still get potentially before the season so that they have a little bit of support in the running game for their young quarterback?
I would be all over Dalvin Cook. I mean, he's available. He's $10 million cap. They're trying to move him. Now, I don't know what the ask is, but it can't be that high. And to me, they need that back. They need that loose play back. Antonio Gibson's not that guy. He's good, but he's not there. Robinson is just, to me, he's going to get you 4 yards. He's going to get what's blocked. Like, they need somebody who can hit a home run. They need somebody who can make a difference. And I think, the other area that was concerning for them last year, Stormy, they couldn't create turnovers. They only had 9 interceptions. They were the worst teams creating turnovers. In their 6 losses last year, of the 8 losses they had, they didn't create a turnover.
Which is interesting because we think of this Washington team as a good defense, right? And Ron Rivera is a defensive-minded head coach. It's surprising they haven't been able to have success in turnover margin.
They can't get the ball out, and that's a problem. And so even though their numbers are good, if you're not creating turnovers, when they created turnovers, I mean, look, they beat the Super Bowl not champions, but the Super Bowl contestant, the Eagles. They beat them. They forced 4 turnovers in that game, right? So, like, when they do that, they're a good team, but they don't do it all the time. That's why they drafted Emmanuel Forbes, because they needed somebody to come in to kind of make plays on the outside. And their offense has got to be able to generate. The other thing they gave up is they led the league in giving up 19 plays of over 40 yards. You can't do that if you're a good defense. You can't give up explosive plays like that. That's one a game. That's more than one a game.
And, Michael, at the very end of your article, while you say you believe this Washington Commanders team has the talent and should be better than that 6.5 win total, you still say, I'm not betting it, though. I don't think that's something that I can have confidence in. And especially, too, when you look at the strength of schedules going into next year, they are in that upper quadrant of a more challenging schedule based on last year's opponent win percentages.
Yeah, I mean, I know I see that, but they don't have, I went through it in the column, too. I mean, they got some gimme putts on the schedule that they should be able to. But at the end of the day, I have no faith in the head coach. I probably have more faith in Sam Howell than I do in the head coach. Because I again goes back to what you said earlier is they're trying to make it happen. Like, you're watching Carson Wentz, you didn't make a substitution. He had to get hurt before you took him off the bench. And everybody says, well, Rivera's got this calming effect. I don't see it. He just stands there. There's nothing in the game plan that makes me feel like he's got control of the game.
Michael, I never want to be that person that's calling for a head coach's head. That's just not the way that I am. But I'm very surprised that he's been able to hang on to this job as long as he has.
Yeah, I mean, look, and the only reason he has is because he's benefited from the disarray. He's benefited from Snyder's problems. And so that's why he's gotten a 4th year of really not turning this franchise. I mean, he's in year 4. He's supposed to have built a winner. This is what he's supposed to do. This isn't calling for his head. This is evaluating his performance.
Well, a very important year, not only for the Commanders as a team, but certainly for their head coach and his future under new ownership coming into this 2023-24 season.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.